Hello and welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the park and my picnic lunch. I promised you an excerpt reading that involves lilacs, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do that in a moment after I finish my lunch. And also, I thought it would be a nice time to introduce my book a little bit, his Steel City Promise, which I hinted at in the last video. Since I haven't done a proper meet and greet for this book yet. So first, some lunch, and then we will get into chatting about the book. Righto then. It was a lovely lunch. I've been wanting to take myself out on a picnic for ages. It's this thing of, I remembered the other day that as a kid, I always wanted to go on a picnic. I had this fascination with picnic baskets. I always wanted to go out, but nobody in my family really wanted to go with me. So I very rarely went on picnics. But that's a side note. So where were we? We were talking about his Steel City Promise. So that is this book here, and this is book 3 in my Colorado Cities romance series. This book, I'm not going to say is my favorite. I was tempted to say it, but I think I say that about every book. But this book is unique of my books because it wasn't really planned. So I think I've mentioned in the past that the Colorado City series was supposed to be one book. Book 1, Her Queen City Ranger, but through various circumstances I ended up writing the prequel and then the follow-up to book 1, which was their Sweetheart City Love. And I went into their Sweetheart City Love completely believing that that was the end of that series. That was it. And wouldn't you know that about halfway through that book, through drafting that book, this guy, William Stanford, he showed up. Completely uninvited, had no clue who he was, and demanding his own book, and totally rearranged what I thought was going on in my story. So, these things happen, right? I'm sure other authors can attest to the same. So what I ended up doing was I realized, okay, the story is not over yet, and I need to tell this character's story as well. So let's start out with our hero, William Stanford. We met his father in the previous book, or his adoptive father. He grows up in a well-to-do Denver family, and he knows from childhood that he is adopted. And, that's bothered him off and on. He doesn't really mention it in the book, but at the beginning of this book, Steel City Promise, he finds out who his parents are. He finds out the backstory, and finding out really kind of made things worse for him. He gets very angry and disappointed because it completely changes the relationship with several people that he thought he knew. So that's kind of the opening for this book is, he's very much disappointed. And he ends up, he's in Denver visiting his family, but he actually works in Pueblo, in the steel industry. Steel City, right? And so he's on his way back to Pueblo. And I'm going to cut off there for a moment because I want to chat a little bit about our second character here. This is Mila. Mila Santiago. And quick fun fact, trying to figure out names, I have a subscriber bonus novella, which has to do with her parents. And the way I picked all of these names, her parents are originally Spanish, from Spain. I lived in Spain for a year teaching English, and I also spent a good amount of time in Argentina dancing tango. So I just kind of grasped onto the most popular names while I was in those places. So you have Carlos for her father and Maria for her mother. And then for her name, I wanted to come up with something a little bit more interesting. And one of the fun conversations I had with a friend of mine in Spain, one of the teachers, was this concept of Catholic names, and how in Spanish those names tend to be pretty dire, pretty kind of depressing. So you have like Dolores, right? Dolores is pain. Pains, you know, is a name. Of course, you have Maria after Mary, and but I liked this one. This name, her full name is actually Milagros, so miracles. And I thought that is such a pretty one. Now, it doesn't sound like a pretty name when you've got the whole thing going, but Mila for short, and I thought that would work. All right, side note done. I'll talk a little bit more about this character. I was looking for a character that was, again, a little bit out of the ordinary, something different, which I hadn't really done. And now I know I veered off the beaten path already with Lucy in the first two books, but I wanted to be a little bit more obvious about it in this book. So I ended up making Mila a single mother, unwed single mother, and that causes her all sorts of problems. It's one of those things, you know, classic story. She fell in love, the guy ditched her, she found out she was pregnant, and because of the era, because of the time, this is where we get the conflict with the parents that I end up resolving in the novella. Because her parents, her mother was a little bit more understanding, but of course not happy about the situation. But her father was not at all understanding and basically kicked her out of the house. So she is completely on her own in the West, in the wild West of Colorado, in the South, in Pueblo, and ostracized by the little town that she grew up in, and just really trying to make it on her own and take care of her child. So I liked that idea, but I needed a way to bring these two characters together. And now that I'm thinking about it, I know my inspiration for how they meet, and I think I actually got some inspiration about her character from the same place. So where was that? Well, at the time that I was writing this book, or that I was thinking about it, I was visiting with my family, my parents, and there is the most adorable woodpecker over here on the ground. I wonder if I can turn this around. Hang on, let me see if I can make this work. 1 second. Okay, shiny butterfly. Sorry, terribly sorry. Maybe this wasn't a good idea to come to the park. I think that other bird was a robin. I think it's a robin. We didn't get a very good look. It was in the shadows, but I believe it was. Oh, ooh, look, there's another one. It's much closer, but I'm not going to mess with the camera again. Is this thing still on? I hope. Anyway, what was I saying? Mila. Inspiration. Okay, so I was visiting my family, and At the time, my eldest niece was still pretty little, and my dad was babysitting. And that's a different bird. My dad was babysitting, and he would play music for her throughout the day. So at this particular point in time, the CD of choice was Johnny Cash, Man in Black, and one of the songs came on. As I was thinking, okay, I've got these two characters, I need to get them together somehow, how am I going to do that? And inspiration, I thought that's perfect, listening to the song. Now, it plays out a bit differently in my book, but essentially, William runs into someone who is on the wrong side of the law, things went bad for him, and he dies, but before doing that, he gives William some, I think, money and a letter or something, and says, get this to my girl, right? And that's how William ends up meeting Mila, because Mila's the girl. So that is the main gist, and without giving away any more of the plot than I already have, what ends up happening is Will, who is in this state of being very angry, very disappointed about his life as an orphan, he ends up now seeing the struggles of Mila, what she's going through, trying her very best to keep her child and to raise her child, but having zero support and really struggling about it. And so the question comes up along the way of, can she do it? Is she going to be able to keep her baby or not? And you know, how she feels about it, and how he begins to feel about it, and as he becomes more and more attached to this little family. So that's essentially it for this book, and I chose to promote it this month because of Mother's Day. This is, I believe, the only book that I have that really focuses on a mother. So I thought it would be nice to bring it up. But lastly, I promised an excerpt reading. So let me try to find the pages where I mention lilac, and I will read those to you. Okay, good grief, I think I'm chasing the sun here. I don't know which direction the light is better, but I found the two references I made, both in the beginning of the book, to lilacs, and I realized that one of them I cannot share with you because it gives away too much of the backstory, and for anyone who is curious, I think it will be too much of a spoiler. So, sorry, you don't get to hear the first one. But then we go on to the opening scene where Will confronts people who he thought were his friends, but they have now just divulged the family secret to him, and now he's upset. So let's see. Will closed his eyes, inhaling deeply. A flower vase sat atop the small side table next to him, fresh sprigs of lilac basking in the mid-morning sun, filtering through the window. The scent only served to further confuse his already convoluted emotions. Since childhood, lilacs had always created a kind of conflict in him, on the one hand evoking feelings of calm and comfort, on the other an odd sort of loss and sadness. He never understood it, and the added confusion wasn't helping matters now. So there you go. Very, very short, very hopefully sweet, but that is our insight into how this flower has affected Will. And if you read the opening scene of the book, then you will already know, unlike him, you will know why the scent of lilacs is important to him. So I don't know how long I've been rambling, so I think I had better cut it off there, but thank you again for joining me in the park and for my picnic, and I hope a few of you might take a look at this book, because as said, it is a fun one. It is my longest, I believe this is my longest novella, so it's not quite 50,000 words, 45 ish, 45,000. So it's a nice quick read for a weekend. All right, thank you again, and I will be seeing you shortly. Happy reading, everyone.